everybody. Hope everybody's doing well out there. This is the Trifecta where UFOs, paranormal, and cryptids collide. I am your host, Katie Paige. This is the official channel of Rocky Mountain Ranch Research. I am so happy you are all here this evening. I am so excited for our two guests tonight. We are going to be really focusing in on the state of Colorado, where we're all from. I have Erin Taylor, who is a very well-known author, and she has really focused a lot of her books right here in the state of Colorado, from ghosts to cryptids and some UFO stories and everything in between. And we also have Sarah Paige, and Sarah spells her name the same way I do that, Paige. And Sarah is a psychic medium, and I'm so excited to have the two of them on the show tonight. You guys are in for a real treat. I hope your week's been filled with more wonder than worry. I mean, we're just being bombarded with news left and right. Just, oh my gosh, turn it off. Let's sit down. Let's hear some ghost stories. Let's talk about psychic mediumship and forget about all that news. Oh my goodness. What a crazy time we're living in. I also have just one quick announcement. I started a new playlist on the Rocky Mountain Ranch YouTube channel, and it's all the documents from the Rocky Mountain Ranch, formerly known as the Clearview Ranch. And I'm just reading through all the briefing documents, all the documents that really have never been out in the public before. So I read through them and then I comment on the research I've done for 15 plus years on that location. So I hope you guys can check that out. It's been fun for me to revisit all those documents. But without further ado, let's please bring on Erin Taylor and Sarah Paige. Hi, Erin. Thank you for being here. And here's Sarah. Hi, Sarah. How are you both doing
how are
today?
you?
It's been a busy time. It's like busy. And can you guys get over the weather here in Colorado? I know the East Coast is getting hit, and I'm a little concerned, aren't you guys? I mean, already fires are popping up.
I'm concerned about the fires, but I have to admit it's nice not to have to drive in the snow.
I know, I agree. I agree with that. But yeah, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's gonna be fire, and then the wind on top of it. Is it windy? Where are you guys both located in Colorado? I know you're both in southern Colorado. Erin, where do you want to start?
I'm in Colorado Springs.
Oh, you're in Colorado Springs. Oh, we're like neighbors. Okay, and Sarah, where are you?
I'm in Denver.
Oh, you're in Denver. Okay.
Yes.
All
South
right.
Denver.
I guess for some reason I was thinking, since you guys wrote the book in Leadville and you focused some on southern Colorado, I had it in my mind you guys lived down south. But all right, we're practically next door neighbors. That's awesome. I just want to kick off the show really. We're going to start with Erin and we're going to go to Sarah. How you got started with all things strange?
Oh gosh, it's always the good question. All things strange. I was a strange child. I loved the ghost stories. And then when the ghost shows came on, it was all about those. And, it was actually funny because ghost hunting, the TV made it so scary. And I wanted to do it. And on a whim, I actually joined a local team, started doing it, found out it was not as exciting as the television shows. And
man,
yeah, so part of me is like wishing a little bit, but at the same time, like, okay, that's good. I don't need to be going dude or bro every 5 seconds. And and then that just turned into the writing, which started just a few years ago, and just been keeping me going.
I was gonna say, don't you have you have a lot of books published? How many books, Erin, do you have published right now?
I have 7.
7. I don't know which one was your first one, but you have a series. So Strange Colorado, 1, 2, and 3. I'm gonna have to pick up some of your books if you're gonna be. There's an event in Cripple Creek, so I'll make sure to pick up some of your books because you cover a lot. You're Haunted Leadville, and we'll touch base on these later. But you have been a busy writer, especially since you've only started a few years ago. My goodness, woman. So Sarah, how did you get started in psychic mediumship? When did you first realize you had a gift?
Well, I really didn't realize it. It's funny, when I was younger, and I won't say how many years ago that was, it wasn't something that was discussed. So I thought all kids were just like me. I thought they knew what was happening next or had the same experiences I had, saw spirits, had things move. I thought that was normal. It wasn't until I was about 35 years old where I met another medium and I started reading a regular deck of cards. She did that and I just took to it. Poker cards. It was strange. And it was just all of a sudden everything opened and I just went with it. I just had to go with it.
And when you mean you can read cards, I'm thinking we're going to Vegas next. I mean, is that what you mean? You can
No.
are you able to predict the cards, or what do you
I
mean?
wish.
Yeah, that would
I
be nice.
used to
Or
play
lottery
poker
numbers.
with my dad. It was very difficult because I'll read a regular deck of poker cards, meaning like tarot. There's debate on what came first, the regular poker card or tarot. And I have an article about that I'm working on. So hopefully that'll be up on my website soon. And it's just something I took to. And I started reading for people and it just grew from there. I love it.
That's amazing. And you too are an author, and we'll
I
talk about
am.
your Charlie and the Archangel Michael and how to protect. I'm really curious about that book, and you have a wonderful website where people can sign up to get readings. So we'll talk more about this in a little bit, but I kind of want to start. I know the two of you have met maybe once, right, at an event.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have the two of you ever been on an investigation together? Probably not.
No, I would love to someday.
Yeah. I was going to say, what's on the bucket list? Because, Erin, I have a list here, and it's literally 2 columns, 2 pages long of places you've written about and explored. But I kind of want to start, Erin, asking you, in the state of Colorado, and I know you've been on other paranormal investigations outside of the state, but if we're going to say Colorado focused for tonight's show, and I'm going to take the Stanley Hotel because that's an easy Stanley Hotel. Everybody goes right to there. What's a lesser known favorite haunted location in the state of Colorado?
Oh gosh. Well, one of the places that I've done a multitude of times, and actually when we do the Cripple Creek event in June, is the Outlaws and Lawmen Jail Museum in Cripple Creek. And it was the old Teller County jail. And that place is active 22 hours a day.
Really?
And, yeah, it doesn't seem to be as well known, but I absolutely, I love it.
And it's such a small little jail. For those of you guys who don't know, this is a little jail right on the main street of Cripple Creek. It's a pretty small place, and I've been there a couple times. I've taken my kids and just walked around. It's never very crowded unless you're at some major event, like it might be for the event there in June. But isn't there I know they had women housed there, and is that an active part of the jail? And there's also solitary confinement. Is there a particular place within that jail? Like next time we go, maybe Tony and I will go back. Tell us where specifically, what kind of activity do they have there?
So it's really interesting about how it seems like different people will experience different things in the jail. Upstairs in the women's, it was where they also housed the children as well. Back when children could be in jail, I mean, as young as 5 or 6, that like with theft, things like that, these children would go in. Or sometimes when women were incarcerated, their children would go with them as well. And so there's some people who will say that there's the spirit of the matron. So she was kind of like the female warden. She lived on site. She had a room up there. And so for some people, she's a warm figure. For some people, she's very, very stern. And I have not had the pleasure of meeting her. However, I do know that there are children in there. Now, again, that's interesting too, is that no women, no children died in this jail. So who they are, why they're there. But so my favorite is the men's tier, which is a double tier where, trying to count off the top of my head, and I should know this, but there's about 8 cells on the bottom, and then there's 4 cells on top, which is one of them being the solitary. And that is where I seem to have my experiences, disembodied footsteps. I saw an outline of the guard. He is a very common appearing presence. That doesn't make sense, but a presence. He's just making the rounds. But apparently, he shows up more for the females instead of the males. And yeah, and or protective, or I don't know. And I've never had the same experience, the same time. I've never felt threatened. You would think it's a jail. There was rough and tough.
Yeah.
You had people all in there while they were waiting court or going down to Canyon City for incarceration. But so I always just, I nerd out over it. I get so excited. But
yeah, it kind of begs the question, and maybe Sarah, like, being, there's the ghost shows, and I'm sure you both know of Chip Coffey, and he's a psychic, and I think it's important to have that mediumship in, paranormal investigations, just like Erin's saying, like, why would a woman and a child want to, hey, Kendall, that's our good friend Kendall. I hope you're doing well, Kendall. I hope you're feeling better. So I'm just curious, like, Sarah, if you were to go, and maybe we can do this sometime since we're all local, go to the jail, and how do you go about connecting? Let's say there are women and children in the Cripple Creek jail. Like, would you be able to pick up, and how does mediumship really work for you? Is it vision? Are you seeing pictures like a movie? Are you hearing messages audibly in your head? Would we be able to, like, why are you hanging out at a jail? Because it's curious to me, like, and it's kind of sad too, like, with children's spirits and women's spirits, are they trapped? And if so, and I want to get this to Erin after Sarah answers, do you try to, set that, like, you guys can go on to the other side now. We'll talk about that in a minute. But Sarah, how does the process for you happen when, let's say, you were to go to the Cripple Creek jail?
Well, the first thing I would do, and I've been to the Cripple Creek jail. That's a hard one to say.
Yeah.
And I did have a few experiences, not as in depth as Erin is describing, probably because I really wasn't tuned in. Sometimes I have to tune in. A lot of times with me, it's all day, every day. So I have to separate myself and know when it's time to tune in and when I can just let them stay in the peripheral. For me, it's a multitude of different ways. My strongest sense is clear cognizance, which is clear knowing. I know stuff without having a clue how I know it.
Including like things in the future. Like, have you ever predicted anything that? Oh.
Yeah. I've had people who want to know when a job's going to come through, and I'll tell them first week of May, and they'll text me and go, "Oh my God, I got the offer," and stuff like that. It's
Cool.
very interesting. It's based on what the angels and the guides and the spirits give me. If they don't give it to me, I can't give it to you. So
Right.
For me, when I go in someplace, I will have to open up and ask. We did have a paranormal investigation in Leadville with another medium and a friend of mine up there. And it was a gentleman who was holding a woman hostage, if you will. She was a prostitute. He was the one keeping her, and he was stuck, and he wasn't going to let her go. And so we were talking to her, and we talked to her and had her come out and come close to us. And we told her she could pass on, she could go. And she was very, very scared. So I have something I do with spirits. I'll say, I'll stay here and wait for you so that if you need to come back, you can. Never had one come back. Never. He was very, very angry. The air in the room, it was a hallway, actually shifted. And people who were not used to this were like, I'm out of here. I have to go now. We all got out of there. He was very, very angry. He was yelling at us. That doesn't bother me. I'll yell right back. I do. I talk back to spirits. I have Archangel Michael on my side. So
Right. I was going to ask both of you. I want you both to answer this question, but Erin and Sarah, have either of you experienced, and Sarah just kind of, maybe you have, like poltergeist activity, things flying off the wall, anything like that? And if so, what was that experience for you like? Or even just the most like, a hitchhiker kind of thing, or where you were like afraid of taking something home. Erin, have you ever experienced like a place that seemed dark to you?
I'm trying to think. Every time I always get that question of, dark, evil, poltergeist. When I think about like something following me, the only time I ever felt like something maybe followed me was actually out in Indiana. And a few years ago, investigating the Monroe House. And it's about an hour and a half outside of Indianapolis. And wild, wild history. Of course, you watch the ghost shows. The Paranormal Lockdown was there. They like satanic rituals. They found bones in the basement. And didn't have anything what I would call evil or, that D word, the demonic. I went back to my hotel room that, I don't consider myself psychic. I may be a little bit intuitive, but there was just something in the room with me. And it's like, hey, you got to go. Like, you're not, like, unless you want to fly back to Denver, let's go. And it, pretty much just, it went away soon after that. But as far as like things being thrown, what comes to mind would be Ashmore Estates in also Illinois. And another I-state, their neighbors. Everything's like so cool in the Midwest. So everything just comes up. But Ashmore Estates, we had pebbles being thrown.
Oh,
and not necessarily at us, but they were around, almost like it was trying to divert us to go into other places.
Was this in an indoor location or outside?
It was indoors.
Indoors.
It was
an old
poor farm.
Oh, wow. Okay. Wow. Yeah, I was going to say, how do both of you, and we'll start with Sarah with this one, how do you like ground yourself or protect yourself when you're doing psychic mediumship work? And I'm curious, kind of the same question, because I feel like, because I've had a lot of paranormal things happen my whole life as well. To an interesting degree. But what's frustrating to me, and this is for both, like, I don't know who or what I'm communicating with, even when, like, you're using the different equipment, the K2 meters or the lights or anything like that. It's a little frustrating for me. And we've had a lot of people pass in this last year. So I have a whole list I'm rattling off, like, and maybe with EVPs, I know you can get that. But as a medium, Sarah, how do you do you worry about like the trickster element? Because I've always heard people talk about, well, you don't know who or what you're dealing with. It could be, like Erin says, the D word or something evil, or how do you navigate that? How can you tell the difference?
You can always tell the difference. First of all, I have always told myself I was not going to deal with evil or the D word. I don't know why we're using that, but I've always asked Archangel Michael, who is our protector and our life path archangel, to protect me. I have a guardian angel named Isaiah that I also have come with me. So whenever I'm feeling uncomfortable, whenever I'm feeling nervous, I will ask Isaiah or Archangel Michael or any angel to come through. And they will give you an instant feeling of calm. Sometimes I know a spirit's coming through, and they're not demonic, but they're up to no good. And so I will get very straight. I'll sit up, and I know the feeling because you can feel them coming close. And I'll just go, Isaiah, and all of a sudden they're gone. It's just something you get used to. And it's really actually cool because I have a lot of things happening around me all the time. I used to live with a spirit in an apartment. His name was William, and he would walk across the hallway. And I said to him the first day, if you're good, I'm good. I mean, literally, that's what I said. He never left the hallway or the back bedroom. It's funny, I had somebody over who said, she was sitting in my living room. She said, "Do you really live with a spirit?" And as soon as she said it, the back bedroom door slammed.
Oh,
She went, "I have to go now," picked up her stuff and left.
oh my gosh.
So I'm like, "William, okay." So to me, it's not demonic. It's just spirits wanting to be seen and wanting to be heard and let you know they're there, or
Right.
they're there to help you. And so to me, it's not as scary because it happens a lot.
Right. And do you
Yeah.
think, like Erin, do you think, you're communicating with spirit as well, but in a different way than Sarah? Do you think that our personalities go with us on the other side? And so if you were like kind of this kind of funny class clown, are you going to be a ghost that is like that as well? Have you found that to be true, Erin? Or, I mean, or do you think most
Yeah,
people are like spirits are trapped?
it's always the big question, isn't it, about
Mhm.
why is the spirit still around? Is there unfinished business, right? The theory as to like why would they be in a jail if they didn't die there?
Right.
And looking at these so-called evil spirits, because that's a big trend, isn't it, right now, where no one wants to watch a show where, oh, there was some nice ghosts and they shut a door for me. They want all this so-called evil.
Mhm.
But and that's just to answer kind of what you were saying before. But also, if there is someone who is a jerk in life, who's to say he's not going to be a jerk in death, or her?
Right.
Where
I was wondering.
if they're a very angry individual, or a lot of that emotional side, that is energy in itself too.
Yeah.
And so I would think that would translate. I wouldn't see why someone who is a sweetheart would all of a sudden become a jerk in the afterlife,
Right.
unless maybe some unprocessed stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's still who the person, is.
Right. You bring up a good point because on the first season of Beyond Skinwalker that was on the next day we had off filming, and the next day I'm out to lunch with I was in Castle Rock at Red Robin having lunch with my daughter, and my shoulder started hurting, and there was like a handprint on my back. It's like something, it's almost like a radiation burn. It blistered, it was hot to the touch. And I got a lot of people after, they didn't show it on the episode of Beyond Skinwalker, but I made some YouTube, and shared my experiences. And people were really fearful that it was demonic or evil in nature and that. But for me, it was snowing, it was blizzard. I walked over barbed wire. I was wearing blue jeans. I was not prepared, and I fell in the snow. And I felt like whatever that was might have tried to like, oh, you poor, like help me up. So I felt a very positive thing. So can the two of you kind of, we'll start with Sarah here. Can you talk about what your perception and what can you manifest, and just your perception if something's good or bad, can that affect your experiences that you do have?
Well, for me, it's again, it's all about a gut check. Sometimes you
Okay.
just know when it's not good.
Yeah,
I,
that's true.
I encourage
That's true.
everybody follow your gut, do a gut check, because we know it doesn't matter. It's no different than if you're going to walk down a dark alley by yourself. You get that gut check that says, don't do that. It's not smart. And it's
Right.
the same with spirits. Sometimes I'm smiling at the hand that you had. I had a spirit that turned my arm. She had burned in a house fire, and it was at a group, and she turned my whole arm this burn. It was a burn.
Wow.
Until we figured out who she belonged to, then it stopped. So they're trying to get your attention. They're trying to say, you're okay, I'm here, pay attention. And sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not. And as far as somebody being a jerk or being a good person in life versus,
Yeah.
and then later in life in spirit, when I do readings, people always come through the way they were in life. That way
Okay.
you know who they are.
Yeah.
You know,
Makes sense.
I will tell people there's going to be political incorrectness and swearing, because if that's the way the person was in life, they're going to come through that way. But that way you know who it is and you're sure of the spirit coming to you in the reading. And then
Yeah.
we go from there
Right.
with
Roger's
messages.
asking, how do you think their reality is different from ours? Which is a great question because both my parents are deceased. My half brother's deceased, and my dad passed actually in the 90s. So he's been gone a long time. But it's funny how we, like, we think of the afterlife sometimes. Like, I'm like, what is dad up there doing? Oh, he's watching the Cubbies game. He's having his shot in a beer, or he's watching Bugs Bunny. But I don't think that's what they're doing over there. And so I kind of want to ask the two of you, like, how do you envision the spirit realm, Erin? I mean, when you picture like going into a location, here's for you, Erin, specifically, when you go into a haunted location, do you think the spirits are there kind of living there all the time, or do they kind of come and go based on who might be visiting that haunted location, or is it both? I'm curious about that.
Yeah, that's a very good question. And I think it would also be different depending on what the location is as well, where if you have something, so going back to like the Cripple Creek Jail, where there's all these presence that seem to be in there, on some level, I don't think they're in there all the time. And I don't know about, some people like to believe in, say portals, but some sort of doorway. And the more I do this, the more I like the idea of different planes of existence, where especially, like, looking at cryptids, that is something that I dove into a little bit there. It's like, well, it would make sense for some other plane of existence. And is that where then maybe these spirits are? And every now and then they slip into ours. And so do they see things how they are now? Like if they're in a building like Waverly Sanatorium, where it's probably 180 opposite of what it was when they were alive, versus the Stanley Hotel that's been refurbished and it's, gorgeous inside and out. Because I'm not in their shoes. I don't know.
Yeah.
But those planes of existence, I don't think we'll really know until we're there.
Right.
And so
I was just curious because if you go into like a Waverly my half brother, he was institutionalized in Pueblo, actually. And I'm thinking of all the places maybe Gary would hang out. I think that would be the last place, but then maybe certain entities or spirits get trapped in these locations, right? Due to trauma in that. But I'm curious just for you, Sarah, I mean, I know there have been psychic mediums that kind of work with or counsel the deceased and have them move on. Like you kind of talked, you protected that girl. And I saw the comment there, like saying you're waiting. That's awful nice. And I'm just curious though, like for these spirits that are trapped, do you think that as a psychic medium, if certain people or certain investigations go to like Waverly, would you have different entities show up, and are entities or spirits attached to certain investigators and people, and can they just come and go and attach to the people? And I guess what my question is, do the spirits change depending on the people that are at these haunted locations? Do you get a sense of that as a psychic medium, or do you have spirits that kind of hang out for unknown reasons at different locations? And I want to ask Erin, be thinking about this because I'm really curious. On the list of places you've been to, Cave of the Winds was one of them, and I want to talk to you about Cave of the Winds because I didn't know that. But anyway, so Sarah, what do you think of that?
I think spirits are here for different reasons. One, it definitely is, I've experienced spirits who are haunting somebody's house, and it's because they came with the house. They lived there decades ago, and that's their house, and they're staying put. I've had other spirits, particularly children, who died young, and they're waiting for their mom, and they don't know that their mom has already passed away. There's The gentleman, I use that term loosely, who was holding that woman hostage, he did not want to pass. He was staying put. He was mad, and he was going to stay there. So I think there's various reasons why they're there. Sometimes they're with the paranormal investigator because they know, for example, that Erin can hear them and will be respectful and they'll talk to her. And they'll stay with her. They won't go home with you if you don't want them to. I send spirits back to where they came from because I have enough in my house. But I think they come for different reasons.
Okay, that makes sense to me. And Erin, in the paranormal realm, through the years, I've heard, like, and Sarah too, you chime in on this as well, that it's more common for children to get confused and not cross. Have you found that to be true? That there's more children spirits than, let's say, the elderly? I'm just using my mom just passed away a year and a half ago now. She's 92. She was 92 when she passed. And yeah, I felt her a little bit, but it seems to me like I've had children spirits that seem to be having a hard time crossing over. Has that been something you've experienced, Erin and Sarah?
Not necessarily on that front. But maybe that's just because that's something that I haven't experienced yet. Usually when I've seen or I've been on a location that I've had, children spirits, it's because of maybe an imprinted memory, right? It's some sort of residual. Stanley Hotel, going back to that. The fourth floor is notorious for the children spirits because that is where they were up with their nannies. That's where they were being taken care of, and probably a lot of really good times up there. There's been other locations like the Cave of the Winds where they say that there were two little boys who disappeared during one of the parties.
I don't know that story. Do you mind kind of just sharing with us the Cave of the Winds? Because I don't know that one.
So Cave of the Winds is probably my favorite tourist attraction in all of Colorado. Mm-hmm. It's naturally formed, minus the front half of Cave of the Winds is very, very nicely paved. There are stairs. Of course, those weren't formed. But then there's the Grand Caverns. And the Grand Caverns you got to go through like 20 feet of 3-foot high ceiling. So if you are claustrophobic or you have a bad back, maybe not the tour for you, but you are pitch black and you are wearing, we basically have a bucket with a lantern. They want you to experience it the way that these folks did. So back in, the dates escape me, but back in like the early development of Manitou Springs, late 1800s, when they found the caves, people would go in and they were in their Sunday finest. And so just imagining, men and women in like church outfits, big bustling dresses, and they're climbing through these caves. Cool. And George and Nellie were the proprietors of the Grand Caverns at the time. There was a big to-do between the front half, where like what they call the Discovery Tour, and then the Lantern Tour. But the Grand Caverns, George and Nellie, they would throw lavish parties in this background cavern. Once you get through that 20 feet, you are this huge open space, and it is absolutely, the acoustics are amazing. Mm-hmm. And then it splits off into two halls, I guess. Well, they would throw parties in there because of the acoustics. And there were, unfortunately, a couple deaths where there was a gentleman who was up on one of the cliffs and he fell off and died. The children were said to have been children of one of the guests. Don't really necessarily know, but they wandered off and in the dark and they didn't come back. And they did a huge search party and never found them. The theory is that the boys fell into one of the sinkholes. There's different areas of the caves where they have them fenced off. But back a few years ago, right before COVID, my husband and I had a little short thing where we were into caving. So we got to go into a couple of those little holes, but they're not always mapped out. So it's possible underneath those caves back there, there's maybe 20, 40 feet down easily for these little boys. Mm-hmm. So the spirits of these little boys are said to be around. People have seen them as like light energies, but there's also stories that it might be George or it's Nellie. Neither of them died in the caves, but they loved the Grand Cavern so much. So, I mean, going back to the child spirit, is it possible too because of something traumatic?
Yeah.
And that's what I wonder is like in that situation.
Yeah. Wow, I never knew that about the Cave of the Winds, and I have been there many, many times. Of course, raising kids, you go there. So, wow,
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that one. And in Erin's books, by the way, I have to tell you, folks, you got to check out her books because there's so many places on here. I could probably talk to you for about 6 hours and ask you Casa Bonita. There's another one. But Erin, I'm curious. I mean, Sarah, I'm curious. Have you ever like worked with missing people cases or helped in that capacity at all, psychically?
Yes, I have. There's one in particular here in Denver where a gentleman disappeared and his family was in town and they were organizing a search. And I met with the family before the search and gave messages, specific messages. And the mom looked at me and said, "Is he passed?" And it just about broke my heart because I will not alter messages. So I did tell her, I said, yes, I'm afraid he has. I was walking the grid with the search group and I just kept telling him he's not here, he's not here. And as soon as we stopped and we went to the group location, I said, they're going to find him. Relax, they're going to find him. Not relax, like they were worried they would never find him. Mm-hmm. And it was about 5 minutes later, they got the call and he was found. And he was found during, it's tough to talk about because he was a very good young man. He was found by the landmarks that I told them about. So it's really tough to deal with people when their heart's broken. You know, my heart breaks with them. Like I said, nobody cries alone. I have to respect people's emotions, respect where they are in life and give hugs and just be there for them because it's very difficult. We all know how difficult it is to lose a loved one. So when it's even more tragic and you don't have answers, I always try to get some answers if I can. The good news is he did come back and he did talk to his friend who was there, who's a friend of the family, and she reiterated even more messages to the family. So he's very much at peace. Unfortunately, it was a suicide and very difficult for the family, but his messages brought them some peace. I've been on cases where it was a murder case, and I picked up the wallet of the gentleman who was murdered. They just didn't have who it was, and sat down and started talking, and out came information about the weapon, where it was, who did it. Now, it's not my job to solve the case. I can't get subpoenas. I can't do all that, but I can help people look in different directions. I've worked with police departments on stuff like that. So it's really quite interesting to.
Yeah, that is such important work. And for both of you, I'm like, the paranormal world in general, people have very mixed views about it. I think the work that you do is so important for healing of other people, and thank you for that. I think it's challenging and you take on a lot. I've had a few tiny little episodes where I'm like, wow, this is a lot. And for people that do this all the time and you read, I think it can be so healing for the family. But I also feel like what, there has to be rules on the other side for spirits. Otherwise, like, don't you both kind of think there must be like a rule book or something? Because otherwise we'd all have our deceased loved ones kind of gathering around us and helping us get through life. But here we are, like, going through the trials and tribulations of this life, being in these human bodies. What is both of your opinions on that? Erin, I'll start with you, and then Sarah, you can go in there. Like, how do you envision like what spirit can and can't do, and how they can and can't engage with us?
I wish I had one good answer. I mean, I think it goes into, why is it that, all the ghosts are showing up in Victorian dress, right? And you don't have the ones that are wearing
Right.
like juicy sweatpants and
I have.
shouting. Okay. I have yet to have that one, but that's the thing, right? When we always,
Right.
someone saw a ghost and it was wearing this dress, and
Right.
and
wouldn't that
so
suggest they're like stuck in their time period, right?
yeah, going back to personalities, right? They're probably
Right.
Not able to wear something of today's dress, but it makes me think of like the television show Ghosts, whether it's the UK version or the American version. Love it, but they're always wearing the same outfit. But rules, there's so many things. Like I think of, again, those planes of existence, or does it take, do they have to go through like a ghost training in order to, Patrick Swayze in Ghost, right? When he's like pushing the penny.
Right.
And yeah, because it does bring up that good question. Why otherwise we'd have all these ghosts that are around us? Or I know my grandmother would be right up in my business 24/7 if she could. But
And what do you think accounts for that? Because it seems like, and Sarah, maybe you can speak to this as well. Like, to me, spirit feels like energy. And when a spirit's going to interact with you or anybody, I would assume that it takes a lot of energy to come through, whether just psychically giving Sarah messages or giving Erin, EVP, or, working the K2, or that takes energy. And why do you think some spirits do come through more easily than others? Any theories on that? Either one of you have a theory on that? Because I'm always curious about that.
For me, I think it's twofold. It's based on what they need to say to us, and it's based on how we may receive it. I often get people where I have to ask the person I'm reading for if they want to talk to the spirit, because the spirit will come through and say, I don't know if they want to talk to me, or they're standing in the back and they're being hesitant. I will ask if it's okay if they come forward with the person I'm reading for. And a lot of times it was something negative that happened in life. I firmly believe, and I believe in heaven. Some people believe in beyond the veil, or the universe. I firmly believe that we review what we did in life and we come back. And sometimes people come back very regretful. Sometimes they come back with, oh, well, I did it. That's what we signed up for. That's always a fun message. And sometimes they just come back and watch, and they're with us, and we just get to experience them. I do not believe in that we have rules in heaven. I mean, I think there are, I guess I'm using the word rules as a human thing. I believe that there's respect. I believe that spirits are so fascinated with what they're seeing and what they're getting to do and what they're experiencing. I've had people in readings come back and say, I went to the Taj Mahal, and the person reading for will go, that was her dream vacation. She never went.
Oh, wow.
I mean, they're doing everything they want to do. They have joy. That's the best part of my gift, is when I see them. Not only do they show me the difficulties, but I get to see them at peace and whole.
Yeah.
And so I get to see them healed.
That
And
is
that's
that is a very hopeful thing. That's really cool to
it's
think about.
very,
I have one follow-up question to that. And I've just this is like a personal question I've always wondered about with my parents as well, because we all go through hardships in life, and I often wonder, like sometimes I'll ask, like, Mom, where are you during this difficult time? Show me a sign, give me a sign, and we'll talk about signs here in a minute. But can spirit see what happens to us in the future? Like, for example, does my mom know, oh, I don't have to worry about Katie so much because I know that she's going to be okay? Do you think that they can see that?
oh, absolutely. I get that
Okay.
message quite a bit. Sometimes a spirit, like a mother, will be with another sibling because they know you're strong. They know you're not going through anything at the moment. They'll come give you a hug, they'll be with you, but they're going to encourage the sibling more because the sibling's going through stuff. Um, it's,
And maybe they have to sit back and let you go through it because they can see
yes,
what comes out of it. Like,
yes.
yeah, that's interesting. Wow.
I'm like
Okay.
you. I wish I had the answers. Just tell me. No,
I know,
I
I
get
know.
to
And this is a
experience
hard
it too.
conversation when we're talking about spirits, right? Because we don't know who or why or what they're here for. But it does seem to me like it's not everybody that turns into a ghost or a spirit. Would you agree with that, Erin? Like, and so it begs a question, like, why these particular ones? What are they hanging around for? you know, kind of thing. Have you, either of you, and we're already out of time, and I was worried we wouldn't have a lot to talk about. We only have 10 minutes left. Um, what are, like, Erin, for you, your most, like, profound experience that you've had personally with any, whether it's cryptid, and I also got to ask you, because this is, I'm more on the UFO end. Have you ever had a UFO encounter as well? And we'll start with Erin on that.
So I've had a lot of paranormal experiences over the years of investigating, but the ones that stick out were, so I mentioned Ashmore Estates earlier. I have a love relationship. I mean, if there was a past life, I would imagine I probably was there. And the second
And
time I
where is
was
this again?
there, just a couple, Ashmore Estates.
In Illinois?
It's out in Illinois, yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, there's ghost shows. I wouldn't bother with them. Actually, if you ever are curious, Richard Estep wrote a book on our experiences out there. Some call it home, and that would be excellent just to read up and basically, see it, experience it. But I was there, and I was actually helping Richard during a public ghost hunt, and I was going in between groups, and I had just left my husband, who was going up to the other group, and I'm walking down the main floor, and I hear my name, but it's more of this like, Erin, like, and that's actually how my husband, how he sounds when he's annoyed with me. So I'm turning and I'm giving this dirty look, like, what the heck? Like, what did I do? He's not there. He's already upstairs.
Ooh.
And so it blew my mind, going, okay, because that's the only time that I've ever heard my name, and especially in that capacity. But we were at, and a lot of these are actually out of state, but like Brushy State Penitentiary in Tennessee a couple years ago. And while we're on a tour, we heard a big whoop kind of sound. And I'm not going to do it because I'll just butcher it. But essentially, I said it to someone who's become a really good friend of mine, Alan, that he's like, that's not a coyote. That sounds like a Southern Squatch. I wasn't really a believer in Bigfoot or anything, even though we've got it all sorts of in here, in Colorado, until that, because I had to experience it. And so something like that, it has opened my eyes to like a whole bunch of like different cryptids and things like that. But the aliens was in the first book. I spent the night down at the Alien Watchtower, the UFO Watchtower down in Hooper, which I'm sure you're familiar with. And we had maybe it was a low hanging satellite, but it was a lot closer than the other ones. So we like to say that was possibly something. It was still an unidentified flying object, but someone in the same campsite thought it would be funny to play the Close Encounters theme. So, to add that to boot.
If you're going to see a UFO, it's going to be in the San Luis Valley out there by the UFO Watchtower. It's super active out there. And I'm with you, Erin, like the cryptid thing. I didn't realize, I mean, I had to experience, I had a cabin in Bailey, and I know you talk about Bailey specifically in one of your books. There's a lot of sightings out there. Sasquatch outposts out there. If anybody's ever going through Bailey, make sure you stop by and see our friend Jim Myers out there. But until I had an experience as well, and I'm like, okay. And I'm curious, Sarah, and whenever Roger asked, I believe that not all paranormal activity is from human. Does Sarah feel them? So what about like Sasquatch and aliens and things like that? Have you ever picked up anything non-human? And do you believe that they're out there in energy form as well?
I believe they're out there. I'm one of those people when it comes to aliens, I'm going to stick my head in the sand and I don't want to know.
No, right, yeah.
I was a tiny little girl. They scared me to death, and they still do. And I believe in them 100%, but I just don't want to deal with it.
One. I don't blame you. And it's such an interesting thing because there's such a different camps or schools of thought when it comes to extraterrestrial life in our universe. And you hear this: are they good? Are they evil? Are they going to help humans? Are they not? Do they care about us? Do they not? And it just runs the gamut. There's some that believe they're here to kind of help humanity evolve and see us through. And then there's others that, hey, they're abducting us, they're doing bad things, and they're not so good. So, and I'm sure it's a whole mixture and everything in between that we probably can't even wrap our heads around. So I don't blame you for that, Sarah. You can stick your head in the sand and that's okay. Yeah. Wow. But for you personally, what is the most profound psychic medium experience you've had that kind of surprised you, or like, wow, I wasn't expecting that?
It was quite a while ago. I was at a group and I was standing in front of two women reading them, and they didn't know each other. And I was going back and forth between the two of them, and I was talking about what happened to one woman's family member, and I was talking to the other woman about what happened, and I kept saying, I'm hearing gunshots, I'm seeing chaos, I'm hearing gunshot, and I was like, it's just total chaos and fear. And that's when they said to me, one of them said, my nephew was killed in the Aurora theater shooting incident, and the other lady turned and looked and said, oh my God, that was gave her family member. So I closed my eyes and I was literally, this was the first time this ever happened to me, transported to the theater. Inside the theater in the balcony, I had a spirit guide with me, and I was literally describing it. And the number of angels, I'm going to cry thinking about it, they're huge. Every person in that theater had an angel with them. Everybody who was harmed or passed had an angel with them. And they were glowing, and they were loving, and they were kind. And I could see some of the spirits of those that were killed with the angels. And when I finally opened my eyes, I was glowing with this big smile. And I looked at them, these two women, and I said, knowing that the love they had when they passed, and the protection and the peace, it's overwhelming. And we were all they were crying, and I was just like I am right now. It was so profound that it was the first time I experienced out of body. And I will forever be grateful for that, because it changed my view of dying.
That's amazing. And it's a personal message. One of my sons actually had friends in that theater during that shooting. So you know what? I will pass that message on to my son.
My
He
nephew
was,
was supposed to be there, and he
I mean,
decided
that
not to spend the
event
money.
hit a lot of us at home, and I don't know
Yeah.
what it is about Colorado. We've had so many tragic mass shootings here, and it's horrific. So to hear that message from you, I will pass that along. That's amazing. And we hear about, a lot of these traumas or car accidents or things like that where spirit and angels will arrive. We're down to 5 minutes. I can't believe this time flew by. Erin, I know you mentioned the event in Cripple Creek, but what do you have on the horizon? What are you working on now, and how can people get a hold of you and learn more about your work and your books?
Yes. So June 6th, we have an excellent Paracon going on in Cripple Creek, Colorado. I have been so lucky to be part of this lineup with, again, my buddy Richard Estep, Amy Bruni, Adam Berry, Dustin Perry, Aaron Sagers, and Becky Ann Galantine are going to be there. And I'll be doing the investigation at the jail the Friday before. Currently, my book is working on haunted cemeteries of Colorado. So that has been a lot of fun to go and trying to bring back the love of cemeteries that people used to have, where they'd go and do picnics and things like that, and not so much of like, the scariness. So just
My grandmother always used to say, it's not the dead ones we need to worry about. And it's so interesting. There's the cemetery there off Arapahoe Road in Holly. My mom's there, my grandmother's there, and some of my family members. But yeah, people would go and have picnics in that. And now, I don't know, do you think it's because of the ghost shows? It's kind of made it this, where it's a peaceful place to go. People used to go and
Yeah.
read books and things like that. And what is one of the most haunted cemeteries in the state?
Oh, well, let's see here. I've just started getting into it, but of course, there's the ones that are, you got to do Cheeseman Park, right? You got to do the Old City Cemetery. That one, that one, every time I do research on it, blows my mind. If, any listeners aren't aware, it was the original city cemetery of Denver. They decided they were going to make a park. They were going to move bodies. They didn't move the bodies, very poltergeist. And so then they wonder why it's massively haunted over there.
Wow. I really encourage everybody to check out Erin's books because she has a lot of them. Just go to Amazon, type in Erin's name, and you'll see all her books out there. And then you're a contributor to The Morbid Curious. There's many articles in that looks like a really cool thing to check out. So I'd be sure to do that. And Sarah, same for you. What do you have on the horizon here? And I encourage people to check out her site and book a session with Sarah. I know I'm going to.
I'm
going to do that.
Actually, the cemetery you mentioned on Holly is one of my favorites. I used to go over there when I was feeling stressed out, just to walk and go to. It brings so much peace. It's a great cemetery. Yeah. That's how I love that stuff. For me, I am doing a lot of writing right now, putting out information for people on, how to find your life path and things like that. I'm also working on a series to help people learn how to read a regular deck of cards. I love doing group readings, up to 10 people, large groups. I love doing that. Of course, I will be in Leadville. It's my second home. So yeah, absolutely. Call me. Well, don't call me. Email me.
No, I'm going to encourage my listeners, check out both Erin and Sarah's work, and here you can book a reading with Sarah. I'm definitely going to be doing that as well. Like I said, both Tony and I have lost quite a few people in this last year. It's been, I don't know, maybe it's just because of my age, and the older you get, the more people. But it's like, oh my goodness. So I definitely be looking for that, Sarah. I don't know how far booked out you are, but I will be doing something.
I've got you.
Awesome. And I hope that we see you too, Sarah, out in Cripple Creek. I'll be
Oh, I would
there as
love it.
well. Rocky Mountain Ranch Research will be there, and Erin will be there. And like you mentioned, Amy Bruni. Years ago, I did a couple Stanley Hotel events with Amy was there, and I got to meet her. So her picture's right there on my wall, right there.
That's
So
awesome.
she's super cool. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that event. And I can't thank the two of you enough for being here tonight.
Thank you.
You kind of got my
Thank
ghost
you.
hunting juices stirring now, and I hope that we could stay connected. And I'll certainly see at least Erin, and I hope to see Sarah too out there in Cripple Creek. But thanks everybody for being here, and until next time. Good night,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Thank you.
Good night.